mobility training in general is like, if we're looking at an athlete and we understand that when an athlete lengthens a muscle, the longer the muscle gets, right, the more tension that will end up having. In turn, ideally, greater power output. You'll see a lot of athletes, when they squat, the bar will come forward. And then after 5 or 6 or 7 squats, all of a sudden, they have a little bit more active control and active range of motion. We know that that lengthened position can help with mobility quite a bit, and it can help even increase flexibility to a point. We got 2 sweet research papers here, actually 3. Flexibility and its effects on sports injury, comparison of ankle force, mobility, flexibility and plantar pressure values in athletes according to foot posture index. That's going to be a fun one to check out. Mobility and stability adaptations in the shoulder of the overhead athlete. My only thing there is, isn't stability part of mobility? That's sort of what I thought. But, I think that's another big discussion. And in my comprehension, I feel like when I would talk with BPM, or we listen to BPM, when I talk with John, mobility doc, John Giacalone, he would sort of, at least in my recollection, is that mobility is flexibility and stability. Those play a role, okay? So like being active, like what's the range of motion of an active joint? And that's sort of my comprehension of mobility. And I think that one of the aspects that we sort of confuse is that we'll talk about flexibility, but flexibility to me is an inactive joint. So it's just like a passive range of motion. That's like flexibility, right? But mobility would be, how am I able to get through a range of motion actively? And I think that that's sort of the way I look at stuff, and I think that that's pretty consistent as far as the way the fitness world, I guess, would look at this. And so what does mobility do for training or for athletes? And I think that mobility training in general is like, if we're looking at an athlete and we understand that when an athlete lengthens a muscle, okay, so if the longer the muscle gets, right, the more tension that will end up having, and then in turn, ideally, greater power output. But also, if we have structural integrity through that lengthening, then that's going to help support that joint, which is why if we have athletes that are mobile, and let's say they're weightlifters, they've got tremendous range of motion, they have tremendous ability to have active range of motion, and then they can recruit very thoroughly through that range of motion, and they can apply a massive amount of force from different positions because of that. And I think that that's another big aspect too, is like, I'm working with some pro day guys for football, and I'm thinking about ankle mobility and ankle positions and related to the hip. And if you're looking at as simple as, coming out of a cut of a shuttle. So if you're doing a 5-10-5 as a baseball player, or even whoever, a wrestler could have the same positioning here, and you can't get into a deep position on a shuttle, and you can't let your hips get deep, then you can't come out of that cut as smoothly, and you might lose. Instead of coming out in a second, you might be coming out in 1.2 seconds. And so the mobility that you're increasing through the ankle or through the hip or through the lower back potentially, and the structural stability that you're then generating could have a hindrance, or that you're not generating, could have a hindrance on your time if you don't have that mobility. So I think it's a really important thing, to think about, why should we be doing these things? On top of that, ideally, this is something that we should be consistently thinking about as coaches too. As coaches, is like, recently there was a paper, and we don't have that for today, but there was a paper that just came out, like, I'd say like a month ago, right? And they compared really intense stretching of the pecs. And it was like 15-minute long duration of pec stretches. And then what kind of growth did they see? And they actually saw quite a bit of muscular growth from these very long periods of stretching, actively, almost like PNF really. And so we can see that doing full range of motion exercises and doing full range of motion movements, like a dumbbell bench that's really deep, or a snatch in a deep position, or a back squat in a deep position, we know that lengthened position can help with mobility quite a bit, and it can help even increase flexibility to a point. So we've just got to keep that in mind. And so areas that we see, so one of the questions that we got, what areas are athletes usually least mobile? And if they are least mobile in that area, does that in turn lead to injury? And I think it's really dependent upon the sport, right? So like typically what I would say is those joints, and it's, those joints are really going to be the shoulder, and in my opinion, the shoulder, the hip, and the ankle. I think that's usually what I see. Now, in this case, I would err on talking to someone like John from Mobility Doc. I think he really, this is where he and his wife spend the majority of their day. But I think when you're looking at problem areas for, let's say for a football player, I think about, typically we'll see their hips are tight and their shoulders are tight. Okay. So if we can improve the mobility in their shoulders, which then will lead to more stability. And if we can improve their hip mobility, they can play lower. Okay. So if those improve, that should help with injury prevention. If you've got really, really stiff shoulders, okay, like really, really stiff shoulders, and you get hit in a specific way where like your shoulder can't move through a range of motion because of how stiff it is, that's going to lead to some direct trauma. That's going to lead to some acute trauma in that situation. There's some videos of like Patrick Mahomes training, and Donovan McNabb, who was a QB for the Eagles back in the day, used to do some wild yoga, some very crazy like stretching routines, right? And he would say, well, I'm doing them. And he was a bigger dude. He was doing them for if somebody rolled up on his ankle or rolled up on his knees. And Mahomes does a lot of this stuff where he does crazy bridges and works on that mobility. And then this past week, I think when they played the Ravens, there was a video of him like rolling out of a guy who's twisting on his ankles and his knees. And then he gets out of it and makes a throw that gets him a first down. And it's like, he could have been injured in that situation, but because he's prepared for it, and he's also a freak athlete, to be totally fair, he's prepared, and that enables him to then not be injured. And so if you're more mobile in those situations, and you'll see this a lot in wrestling, especially in folk style wrestling, if somebody's throwing a half and they're doing Tolan, is Pat Tolan here waiting for Thor and Loki to arrive in this podcast since what's up? So I think that's some stuff we've got to think about. So name 3 to 4 mobility exercises for the upper body. Okay. So dude, the crazy part for me is immediately like, I think something as simple as like literally doing dead hang pull-ups is one of like the fastest ways to increase your upper back mobility, your lat mobility, and just actively thinking like, okay, I want to pause 1, 2, 3 when I'm down in the bottom position of a pull-up and then come back up. Immediately you'll start to have athletes say like they're getting a little bit of like spasms in their mid back. And they do this even when they're doing a miracle grow too. So they're going back overhead and they start to feel that in the thoracic extension as well. That's another one. So outside of that, okay, prayer stretch is going to be one. Scorpion is going to be another one that I really like, especially for the shot putters and for football players. I think you tend to see that open up their upper back, their shoulder quite a bit, and it helps with their hips as well. I think those two specifically, are going to be excellent things that you can use to help wake up that upper back. I even think doing like roller, like you have a band here and you're doing roller work for your serratus anterior. I think that's where you're also going to see wrestlers quite a bit will be in that position. And then what's interesting for me is like, dude, you can just get a bar and put it overhead in the snatch position and just hold it there. And then slowly bring in your hands to try and feel that. And then you can start to squat with that. And you'll see a lot of athletes, when they squat, the bar will come forward. And then after 5 or 6 or 7 squats, all of a sudden they have a little bit more active control and active range of motion. And so I think that that's some stuff that we've got to keep in mind, is that you can do a lot of this stuff. We've even got, another great one. And I got this from John from Mobility Doc, is this big giant roller, and we'll put our hands on that roller here and try to really extend that thoracic spine. That's another one that opens up that upper back. So that would be some work for the upper body. For the lower body, we get these questions a lot, and I think that couch stretch is the one that I err a lot towards. Couch stretch. Lower back pain, try the couch stretch. Okay. Some knee issues, try the couch stretch. Okay. And I had a discus thrower. He still throws with us. He's one of the best in the world, Josh Sarachin. And I remember him saying the first day that he tried the couch stretch, he felt like his whole hip was just going to blast out of his leg. And over time, as he built that up, he became much more mobile, much more stable in that position. So I think that's like the first one that you want to ease into very slowly. Another one, is that Jacob Horse I see in there? Wait, I just saw Jake over here. Where's his... I'm trying to look through Jake. It's weird because there he is, 500,000 subs. That's almost 4 Beaver stadiums. Jake, that's 5 Beaver stadiums. There's 5 of them, 110,000 people. I guess it's not technically 5. 540 would be 5, or 550, I guess would be 5. 4.5 Beaver stadiums, we'll say. That's crazy. Good to see you in there, Jake. And I think, looking at weightlifting or looking at wrestling, you go couch stretch, and you can go, like a hip 90-90 that you just hold static. And then you go hip 90-90 where you're, doing like a windshield wiper back and forth. I'm looking at somebody's comment about what Eric's going to throw this weekend. And you go hip 90-90 to a hip extension. Okay, so that's another couple different exercises that you can use. I really like pigeon pose as well. I like baby pose as well. Those are all movements that I think we should be doing on a regular basis. Some exercises that we take for granted that we don't use, there's like duck walks. Duck walks are freaking awesome. 1, for wrestlers. 2, for offensive linemen. It's like, we could be doing duck walks on a regular basis. In our poll that we just did on the YouTube poll, body weight squats, ass to grass, sitting down on the bottom, cranking side to side, so those are some really, really good and simple mobility exercises for the legs, for the lower body, that can lead to some tremendous growth. And think back to the scorpion stretch as well. And so we look at mobility work, and I try to see mobility as like, if we can open up and get somebody to be more stable through joints. 1, there's going to be the aspect of there should be injury prevention. 2, there's also going to be like they're going to be a little bit more in tune with their body, so their biofeedback is going to be better. 3, the other big aspect is that if we can lengthen muscles, in turn, we're going to see growth over a long period of time. So there's like a couple different factors. And so how often should you be doing mobility work really comes back to, 1, how frequently are you training? If you're training twice a day, I've been diving deep into the Norwegian endurance system. They train twice a day, and they have long runs twice a day. And then sometimes they do really high intense runs twice a day. And I think, if you look at it and go, well, technically they could be doing mobility 3 to 4 times a day. And I think that even if you train once a day, if you're training 5 days a week, you should probably do mobility at least once every, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. I think just starting with like 10 to 15 minutes of stretching, guess what? Now that's 10 to 15 minutes that you're off your phone. And a lot of kids, a lot of parents will even say, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to do that. It's like, hey, guess what? If you just take this thing out of your hand and you do some mobility work for 15 minutes before you start to, wind down and go to bed, well, now all of a sudden you're going to feel better. So you're going to feel just healthier in general. It's almost like a form of meditation. So I think it's reasonable to ask like 5 or 6 days a week for 15 minutes and you'll be okay. I was even just thinking back to the last like 4 weeks leading into my marathon in Philadelphia was, every single night I just do some random stretches on the PVC pipe. I'd do some hip work. just doing 15 minutes while the kids are like playing on the living room floor. It's like just being down there stretching helps me be more present with them. And it's like, dude, stop. It's possible. Everybody can do it. Everyone. I can do work right now. I could do mobility the whole time I'm doing this live. Maybe I should do that, except I'll probably get lightheaded. You know, if I'm sitting down here, ass to grass, right now on my heels, now all of a sudden I get a little bit of mobility work done, right? And if I can even do some stretches here, look, I'm doing some mobility work. Oh gosh, I'm going to start cramping in my shoulders. And so I think that when we're looking at it, it's being creative with it and working through your constraints as well as you possibly can. Okay, so we're going to look at some different videos here, and then I'm going to jump into the chat to try and answer everybody's chat questions. I want to set up, we got some really, really big throwback videos. Wait till you guys see the video reaction. I don't know if you remember what we talked about last week in the live chat. Why aren't there a follow along video in the corner? So here we go. Yeah, PVC pipe walks. There we go. Recruiting tape. Absolutely. PVC pipe walks are one of my favorite. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you would have seen yesterday, 2-time Olympian Hugo Barrett, who I'm working with doing his strength training for sprint cycling. He posted a video yesterday of him doing PVC pipe walks for his warm up. So here we go. We're going to get into some video reactions. Let's get over here. Check this one out. Exercises. Tell me if it's too quiet. I'm sure Keith is going to say it's too quiet. Let's go. So that number 5 exercise. Oh, scorpion pec stretch. There's Haley. A lot of my football players as part of their warm-up. This is also a movement that I learned directly from the Mobility Doc. So if you want to learn anything about mobility deeper, head over to mobilitydoc.com. You can learn from Chloe, and you can learn from Doc to that muscle. Start to feel inside their pec when they're getting.
Sometimes I just want to run a card.
Trying to skip through here so we can check out some of these other 5 mobility exercises that every athlete should be doing. Look at this video too. It's doing pretty well. We got 583,000 views on it. All right. Some more views. Has Dane made a video after he ran the marathon that he hasn't mentioned the marathon? I don't know if you know this, Keith, but I ran a marathon. And a lot of guys might get stuck in certain angles, this is time they can work. Definitely so where I tend to get stuck is with that hip 90. I love doing this. The hip 90. What do you think I weighed in this video? Put your predictions or put your guesses down in the comment section. What do you think I weighed when I was filming this one? Yeah, bear crawls, great exercise for total body mobility work. Absolutely, I think that's absolutely fantastic. Kate's in there. Why aren't you training, Kate? So we're looking at scorpion pec stretch, hip 90-90. I want to see some guesses for what my body weight was during this. Did you know Dane ran a marathon? Did you know that? Damn it, Jason, we should actually be doing a guess on my body weight. Okay, so I'm going to skip forward now. We see that elevated pigeon pose. Has a lot to do with their peer. Come back up. This is that elevated pigeon pose here. This is another one. It's like you guys could be doing this in the middle of the day randomly. I think quite a bit of you will find a benefit from that. There we go with the PVC pipe walks. My all-time, and this is the one that I was talking about for that back. Okay, see that roller right there? This is great, and you work your elbows down to the floor, but it's going to help with that extension, with that thoracic extension. Your body weight in the video, dude. I think I was bigger than 250. I was probably, we'll see if there's any more guesses, 248. Field hockey players are also in that same position all the time. A little bit heavier than that. Now you start to lengthen their lats. They improve their lat strength. I was swole. I wasn't shaving my head back then. I thought it was. Okay, now, this is going to be the kicker. This is going to be what we were talking about last week. Here we go. The absolute craziest. This is my old YouTube channel. This is the channel that, I've got a lot of just wild stuff on here. I'm trying to see if there's a video of me throwing super slow. Let's check this one out. Just getting mad and frustrated with every single throw. So this was, 16 years ago. This was like right when YouTube came out. And I'm trying to find, this is a 275 snatch from back in the day.
Go, one more.
double. This is like my wheelhouse. Hang powers. Let's see if I've got, let's see here. Me throwing a Big Tens. This is, I think I got 5th indoors. And I want to say I recorded this off of I had the actual cassette. This is at Indiana. A little throwback here. I had 122 subscribers back then. It's ridiculous. Start, super slow. Not bad. That was okay. I think that was just shy of 18 meters. All right, I want to watch one more of my old throwbacks because I think we have one of me doing step-ups that was actually decent. Incline benching. Wonder what I was incline benching back then. Let's see. Here we go. That's actually my buddy Frank. There's my niece Devin. She just turned 18. That's crazy. Okay, we'll click on this and then we'll get back to actual work. Look at this high quality video. What is this, 350? I think it's 350.
Let's go, come on. Come on. Up. Last one, come on. Up.
Yeah, so this is my old YouTube channel from way back in the day. Way back in the day. Okay, so wanted to share that with you guys, and I'm going to get into some of these research papers, and we can just rip through this before we get into some of your questions. And basically, it's like, okay, flexibility and its effect on sports performance, or on sports injury and performance. And the thing is here is like flexibility measures can be static, end of range of motion. They can be dynamic passive, okay, or dynamic active. I sort of feel like dynamic active, or maybe I sort of feel like dynamic active could encompass mobility. So acute and chronic changes in flexibility are likely to occur with stretching exercises, but it's difficult to distinguish between changes in stretch tolerance. Okay, there's no real scientific base prescription for flexibility training and no conclusive statements. Now, this is, if I remember, this is from 1997. So this is really before like the big time surge in mobility work, which I think is playing a massive role in what we're seeing in the world of sports performance and how well everyone's starting to perform. You could do a back extension on a small stability ball, probably. I like loaded stretches, and I probably was 267 Nikki in there. That's probably the best choice there, 267, not to taint the poll. So there's basic scientific evidence to suggest that active warm-up may be protective against muscle strain injury, but clinical research is equivocal on this point. So typically specific flexibility patterns are associated with specific sports and even positions within sports, and that's where we're sort of talked about. I think you'll typically see some positions even in football. I actually think offensive linemen at the elite level tend to be a little bit more mobile because they have to be. Defensive linemen especially. So increased stiffness may be associated with increased isometric and concentric force generation, and muscle energy storage may be best manifested by closely matching muscle stiffness to the frequency of movement and stretch shortening type contraction. So essentially it's like being aware of what happens with decreased flexibility, and then just being aware that specific sports are going to have more consistent themes based off their training and based off of what they're doing in their actual competitive realm. Now, comparison of ankle force, mobility, flexibility, plantar pressure values and athletes according to foot posture. So this is going to be from 2022. Okay. And this to me, the objective, the study aims to compare ankle force, mobility, flexibility, and plantar pressure, based off of FPI. So they go through all these methods, then the results and the conclusions. There were significant differences among the three groups in both right and left ankle dorsiflexion range of motion. Group 1. Okay, so group 1 was, let's see here, group 1, having supinated feet. Okay, so they took supinated feet, they took neutral normal feet, and they took pronated feet, and they compared everything. And so group 1 had significantly less flexibility in the gastroc and the soleus. Okay, and that's probably not that good, right? Group 1, and I'm going to show you there should be pronated. There's usually a chart that you can see the types of feet that they're discussing. So if I get into images, there's usually, come on, here we go. So you can see here, hopefully, if I click on this, you should be able to see, damn it, it's just a little bit on the wrong side of the screen. Here we go. Let's see if this works better. Hopefully this works for you guys. That way you can see what they're talking about in this paper. Of course, it's taking forever to load. Let's go back over here. What's up, guys? Our podcast and our channel are sponsored by our own strength training app, Peak Strength. The entire focus of Peak Strength is to provide you guys with the absolute best sports performance app that you could ever imagine. We build out the programs on the back end. We take in all of these different decisions that we learned here on site at Garage Strength, so that we can then apply it to you so you can improve your training. So if you guys want to improve your overall sports performance, head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength. You'll get a free week of training, and then you can start getting on those gains, get those reps done so that you can become a champion. Now, let's get back to the video. Peace. And see, okay, groups 2 and 3 exhibited significant differences in the maximum torque, maximum work, and total work of the right plantar flexor muscles at 60 degrees per second angular velocity. So that's fast, right? Peak pressure measurements of the right foot were higher in group 1 compared to groups 2 and 3. The results of this study may help to enhance athletic performance by providing a guide for designing training programs appropriate for athletes with different types of feet, okay, different types of ankle mobility. So we can see here, right? You can see the pronated ankle leans inward. The normal foot is going to be much more neutral. And then the supinated foot is when you have it with the ankle sort of like rolling out. Okay, so those are some things that we can think about. And that neutral foot is ideal. Flat-footed people could be normal, but they could also typically be a little bit more pronated. And again, I don't think any of these are actually bad per se as far as like sports performance is concerned. I think it really is just going to come down to how well you're trained and how well you're dealing with those different positions. So mobility and stability adaptations in the shoulder. Okay, so now we're getting into the shoulder. And this is a little bit of research from 2008. And if we just go down, this is an abstract. So basically they're looking at throwing shoulders, individual throwing sports, right? And so what do throwing sports do with that shoulder? What do they see? And so translational range of motion laxity has been consistently shown to be symmetric between dominant and non-dominant shoulders of overhead athletes. From a skeletal perspective, throwing shoulders are shown to have more humeral retroversion when compared with the non-throwing shoulder. So that could, in theory, put us at risk of injuries. So think about a QB, a quarterback, a cricketer, anybody along those lines, baseball player. Alterations in humeral retroversion are thought to develop over time in young pre-adolescent throwers when the proximal humeral epiphysis is not yet completely fused. Okay, so let's get into this part here. However, in some athletes, subligamentous adaptations such as anterior inferior stretching or posterior inferior contraction may become superimposed upon the osseous changes. Let's just get to the point here. Overuse injuries in the overhead athlete are common and perplexing clinical problems in sports medicine. We need to figure this out. We need to figure out a short-term and long-term issue around overhead activities, and is our intention that the information presented will serve as a guide. And what's interesting, again, this is from 2008, and they're talking about improving the research and the sort of understanding behind, the understanding behind the actual mobility stability issue. And that's 2008. And I really think we've come a very, very long way since then, where now we sort of see and now we understand what's going on with mobility and why we need to train that and why we need to actually improve different mobility positions. And so I just think that this is an important thing to cover. And I also want to say too that if we're doing things like full range of motion front squats, full range of motion pull-ups, and full range of motion dumbbell presses and snatches and cleans and single leg squats, and we're doing things, Cossack squats, full range of motion, if we're doing all of that stuff effectively, okay, we're going to typically be healthier, higher performing machines, right? And then you couple that on top of the fact that we should be doing mobility 4 to 5 days a week, and that's going to help with your longevity inside of a sport or just in your general movement as well. And so I think it's really, really important to focus on all those different aspects. Now, before I get into the Q&A, I wanted to share with you guys, I wanted to share some really, really freaking sweet stuff that we're doing, okay, that you'll be able to see directly, ideally. Here, let's see if we can get this. Of course, I can't get it up on my phone. We got a new update in the app coming out that I want. There we go. Let's see if we can see. And so we had some complaints about speed issues, and I wanted to see if we can get that. It's zeroing in on me instead of the actual app. But this is the speed issue. There we go. So see how much faster logging these sets is going to be inside of the actual app. So I'm really, really freaking excited. This is coming out February 5th. Okay, so if you guys want me to show you that again, February 5th, this is going to be released where we have a more enhanced processing speed. The new update is going to include options to track your feelings after your sets. Maybe not yet your emotional feelings, but your actual overall feeling from the specific sets, and you're even going to have that share workout. So this is just some of the new stuff, and I'll show you this again. So the big thing for me is like the speed. The speed of this and what we're doing is going to be freaking awesome. So I'll show it to you guys again here. There, you can see how quickly that logging and some of the stuff we've changed around. But you can see the movement patterns that we're just trying to, basically we replace the motor inside the app. Dane, can I be a beta update user for Peak Strength? I feel like Andrew, what we could do is, well, he's saying for updates. I think Andrew, I think that's something maybe on Discord we could talk about. Maybe Trevor could see that too. I think Trevor would be down to do that because that'd be cool. All right, let's get into the Q&A. I think the updates that you're going to see inside this version now with Peak Strength, we're like turning that corner where it's starting to get really, really freaking cool. And some of the stuff that we're building into the back end with some of the team build out is freaking awesome. So I'm excited for a lot of this stuff, but the speed stuff's incredible. Okay, I'm going to get in here. I'm 16. I want to train Gaelic football as much as possible, 5 to 6 times a week, and be the best. How do I do this without overtraining? Sean, what I would recommend, lift 3 days a week. Do your lifts 3 to 4 days a week if you can. Make sure you have those specific goals. And don't we have Gaelic football inside of Peak Strength? And then on top of that, make sure you're some of the cool drills I've seen with football guys in Gaelic football, the drills that they might do in their basement, just like 20 to 30 minute drills of stick work and really focusing on that. Alex, I started stretching and trying to be more flexible, but I'm worried it'll affect my SBD. I'm not sure what SBD means, and I'm not going to answer that. I'm excited for the extra granularity on set feedback. Yeah, it should be cool. Struggling with imbalances in rotator cuff mobility from years of throwing sports and tennis serves. Any recommendations on how to even things out? So I think this is from Greg Nice. I think, Greg, some of the stuff that I see with imbalances in the shoulder, in the rotator cuff, I think it can be fixed actually with a lot of trap work. I like heavy shrugs, farmer's carries, things along those lines. I think that you can see some improvement there. I also think a lot of guys will say like tons and tons of rows will fix it. Honestly, I think it actually tends to be the opposite. I think some of the best ways that you can fix the shoulder imbalances is a lot of presses and a lot of dumbbell presses. I think focus on like dumbbell military presses. SBD is squat, bench, deadlift. I thought we were talking about something else. So no, that should not, increasing your mobility shouldn't hinder your squat, bench, and deadlift. I mean, I would argue this. Look at Sam Mattis. He's an absolute savage. And Cyro is just commenting right now about being a hawk whisperer. Cyro, we were talking about you earlier with the couch stretch and how you had commented to me a couple of years back when you started to do couch stretches that you felt like your hip was going to blow out. Cyro's also the guy, he's in the Instagram chat. Sadly, he is not inside of the YouTube chat. Cyro's also the guy who's got like a 41-inch vertical leap and he weighs like 265. So just throwing that out there. But weightlifting doesn't help your vertical jump. Anyway, let's get back to it. Somebody asked me a question that I like a lot is, how is my Lyme disease? I've been struggling for 2 years. This is from Jackson. I'll try to answer this as quickly as possible. Recruiting tape, peak strength has throwing inside, and I think that would transfer well for Highland Games stuff. I should commit to some of this hot yoga stuff. I don't know when, because I don't know when, Earl. I'm not sure. Anyway, so Cyro just commented, couch stretch saved his life. Now, when it comes back to good time for a shuttle for a 290-pound nose tackle, 4.5, 4.6, that'd be freaking fast. Lyme disease for me, from 2013 until like 2016, it just slaughtered me. I got super, super overweight because of all the antibiotics I was taking. Now lately for me, I've been feeling really pretty good. I think me getting my weight under control, I think me increasing my cardiovascular health, I think getting regular blood work done. I was getting blood work done on a monthly basis, on a bi-weekly basis when I first got diagnosed. I think that helped me see where gains were being made with my white blood cells. I think it's just got to be like, you got to enable yourself to not work as much. You got to make sure you're getting enough sleep. You got to make sure you're eating really well. Make sure you're still exercising, because even at the time, like when you first get any tips of getting out of jury duty, tell them some ridiculous lie to get them out. I think that as far as dealing with Lyme disease, it's like just being aware. And like even like today I had a big flare up in my right elbow. I could barely do a rope climb. And I've got like such terrible arthritis, and then like it'll go away for like 15 minutes and I can do something, and then it comes back. So it's like, as far as mentally, I feel like I'm almost entirely over it. As far as physically, I just still get hit with the arthritis from my elbow. Hope that helps you, Jackson. I hope you continue to work hard to defeat it. I don't know what you're taking or what you're using. There's a lot of doctors out there that can help, and a lot of quacks out there too. As far as going back to that hot yoga, I think I would do the hot yoga if we just went into Reading and it was like, let's go like next Tuesday at 1 p.m. My only hesitation right now is I haven't been going to the sauna as much as I usually do, because I'm training more in the middle of the day, and that's sort of screwing it up. What's your top 3 rotator cuff strengthening exercises for tennis? Man, Julie Brown just came in. I almost feel like we should be asking her, because she's a PT. I think for me, I just like the classic dumbbell external rotation with your elbow up on your knee. I think the downfall is that people don't load it enough. I think that if you focus on the slower eccentric on that external rotation, it's great. I also think doing like rapid ball drops here, doing some chaos stuff. But honestly, I think dumbbell external rotations, I think banded external rotations are fantastic, because there's going to be more tension at the top. And then I think even like with rings, having rings like a TRX and you're doing external rotations there is another great way to train that rotator cuff, and that should lead to some increased strength. Would you ever do some MMA for conditioning weekly? Would I personally? I would not do MMA weekly for conditioning. No, I have no interest in MMA. I like the sport. I love the sport, but I don't want to do it myself. But you can use that as conditioning. And ironically, you're asking this question here, and I'm going to show you guys some behind-the-scenes stuff. Basically, I have, if we're talking about MMA, I've got a Big 12 wrestling program's entire year layout, what they do on a yearly basis, and then we're looking at their yearly plan. Okay, so we're laying out the yearly plan, and then I'm taking some of the work that I'm doing. With the Norwegian endurance system, and I'm taking that information, and then I'm marking, okay, this is when the Norwegians do this specific type of training, this is what we can do with this wrestling, and then setting up the endurance system for wrestling based off of some of the threshold training that we're seeing with endurance work, while they still do some lifting. So that's sort of where my focus is right now as a coach, is really in the speed development and what we're doing with our pro guys, but also in improving my comprehension of endurance work and how we try to increase blood volume and things along those lines. How strong does Jason need to be to claim to be the world's strongest video editor title? I think for Jason to do that, first he has to be able to climb the rope one time. You have to be able to do a rope climb. The second thing, I would say for Jason, he's got to bench 405 for a triple. And then the last thing, because his deadlift's so bad, he has to deadlift at least 500. Keist, we are not doing T-shirt giveaways anymore. We just took them out because of retention on videos and things along those lines. Although I want my peak strength shirt. I need help with external rotation and lat flexibility for the front rack and for overhead presses. Okay, so that's where like prayer stretch comes into play. And if you remember the video that we reacted to with the roller, that's going to come into play. And I also think even rolling the lats can help quite a bit. That's going to be another one. Greg Nice, thanks for the program. Also just picked up 2 of your tees off the merchandise website. All right, thanks, Greg Nice. I'll see you later. Getting back up to some of these questions. Yeah, jury duty, I'm looking at that. Like, I don't know what you can do with jury duty. There's got to be some way that you can get out of that. Another big thing I wanted to say was shoulder stability with the overhead athletes. I like doing push-ups on the PVC pipe and then pulling this one hand up, push up here, push up one arm, pull this up. Because now you're getting more shoulder stability and you're improving grip as well. So I think that does help. Dean. Yeah, I don't know about that question, Andrew. I would say, yeah. I don't know. I wish they did. I wish they listened to me. Yeah, I can't really respond to that. Deadlift, Jason. Yes. What are the best exercises for shoulder instability and post-surgery shoulder rehab for torn labrum for football players? I'm thinking about this. A lot of like slap tears, stuff like that. Dude, you're just going to start off with like real simple banded work here for shoulder work. Shoulder instability, to me, the best way to deal with it is like Z presses with kettlebells. Start there. Do a lot of dumbbell work. And it's funny because the other day, I think Jason or Earl said something to me, and I shut up, Jason. That's ridiculous. Jeez, Jason's gonna say some things off air, I know. Yo, by the way, Jason, so this is for Russell. Jason is walking around and he has not shaved his head and he's not wearing a beanie. He tried to wear a hood the other day and he cannot wear a hood. I think, so I brought this up to Earl and to Jason. This is for everybody out there, okay? Everybody in here. One of the things I think with shoulder instability and shoulder mobility, that one of the reasons why we have such instability is because we don't push movements like a Z press or a push press or a military press. And I think, why not push? So why not push military press like big time? And I actually told them, like, I'll screw around and I'll sit on power elastics and I'll do military presses with the power elastics with dumbbells. So there's a lot of tension at the top. And one of the things when I went out to Elite FTS, I did the podcast with Dave Tates. He was like, yo, put bands and kids learn how to recruit more with bands, and then they'll learn how to use that muscle recruitment better when they don't have bands. And I would argue here that we don't push our military press enough, meaning we don't go heavy enough. So if we would push the military, and I've got videos from like when COVID first hit, I wanted to hit 140s, and I think I got like 7 or 8 reps. I was wearing a USA Wrestling shirt, and I had the mask on. We were during lockdown, and I still have that strength in my shoulders, and that was 4 freaking years ago. So it's like, not that I'm that strong, but I can still crank out the hundreds. Just over Christmas break, I hit the hundreds for like a set of 10. It's like, push the shoulder strength with dumbbell military press or with Z press, and that shoulder stability disappears quickly. Now you have to build it up, and it might take 10, 12 weeks, but it can be serious. And that's coming from, here's Earl, king of the PA press. Earl's shoulders were so stable that he could push press as much as he could jerk because he wasn't athletic enough to have that quick change of direction. Best mobility exercises for basketball players. I think, we've got that peak strength video where we break down the mobility exercises for basketball players. I think a lot of times because they're longer, taller, it's going to be a lot of ankles and a lot of hip. Okay, a lot of ankle, a lot of hip work. And we got to think about, we got a Kabaddi athlete in here. Kabaddi. Is that, which version of Kabaddi do you play, Tamor? Let us know. And I think that, dude, we have a Kabaddi video on YouTube. Like, who else? What other strength training YouTube channel goes in depth into how you could work with Kabaddi or that reacted to Kabaddi? Dude, that's just crazy. I love that. We should, there's a, I always forget, Jason, maybe you could comment. Did we ever do that video on, was it Calcio Fiorenti, the one where they wear those weird outfits in there, they fight each other playing like football? Let me know. Yeah, and so actually Tamor just comments, he goes, I tore a meniscus because of immobility. Now, the only thing I'd say with that is that we can't definitely trigger, say that torn ACL or that torn meniscus is because of your lack of mobility. That's not a guarantee, but we know for the most part that people who struggle with working through, if you have an athlete here that can work through, 120 degrees of range of motion, and the athlete over here can only work through 90, the athlete that has that 90-degree range of motion is probably more prone to injury if they're in the same sport playing at the same speeds. So I do think there's something to be said there. And Andrew just commented, and I swear that I have talked about doing an ultimate video because of Marquez Brownlee. I want to do a video strength training for ultimate. I think we should do videos on that. I think that's a big space. I think, we've even talked about pickleball. We want to do a video on pickleball last year, but I think we should do something on ultimate. Andrew, let us know what you would want us to do there. Elijah just commented, so if I jog or sprint my route as a delivery driver for UPS, geez, I just said ups. Wow. So let's go back to Elijah's question. If I jog or sprint my route as a delivery driver for UPS, which is 10 hours a day, and I know this because one of my best friends delivers, should I still do conditioning or can I just lift for strength and hypertrophy and plyos? So Elijah, I would say maybe once a week you do interval work if you wanted to on the weekend. But honestly, I would just do strength, hypertrophy, and plyometric work, especially if we're looking at longevity. You're getting plenty of that. We've never done a video on Calcio Fiorenti. Are you sure? I feel like we've reacted to that. Maybe I just watched it a couple times. Oh man, because I remember when we went over the Kabaddi stuff. Maybe we just thought we talked about doing that. So yeah, we got to do a video on Calcio Fiorenti, and we got to do a video on Ultimate, and I want to do a video on Highlight. Invite your peak athlete Fred to do a video on Ultimate. He won the U.S. and World Championships in 2023. Beat Marquez Brownlee in the finals. Really? See, why don't we know this? Why don't we know this? Why haven't we heard about this before? We've got guys in peak strength that won world championships in Ultimate. and beat Marquez Brownlee. Come on, that should be like a little throw out to Marquez. Like Marquez Brownlee, if you want to step up your training, you clearly got to do a collaborate. You clearly have to do a collab with us to step up your training so that you can become a world champ, because we're training the world champs in Ultimate that are taking you down, dog. He's not going to care at all. Okay, so maybe I've just mentioned Calcio Ferrenti on past shows, and maybe we reacted to them, but I think it's one of the craziest sports that you can play. Schwingen's another one. I have these weird sports that I've always wanted to do, like Calcio Ferrenti, Kabaddi, Schwingen. What are some of the other ones that are just like fringe sports? We did a couple of those reacts for a little bit, Gaelic football. So question, or how should I do conditioning for basketball? Trying to ease back in after being out with injury and health issues. How do you balance zone 2 cardio with sprint work plyometrics? I think zone 2 work, if you're truly doing zone 2, like you're truly doing zone 2 twice a week for an hour each time, should be pretty easy to get done. And then you do sprint work or interval work once a week, and I would start that session with plyometrics. So if I want to do sprint work, I would start the sprint work session by doing like 20 minutes of plyo work, then I would get into the sprints. That's how I would set that up. Come at us, bro. Come at us, bro. So my size looks like I'm stronger than I am. I'm pretty weak compared to other athletes. My size looks like I'm stronger. Okay, so you got big size. So that means, Jake, you just got to get some work done. You got to train, lift more, get under the bar more, 5 days a week. 5 days a week, get under the bar and start lifting. All right, any other questions? I'm going to head down and start coaching soon. I just saw Polar Bear. For someone like myself training for general fitness at a Globo gym, which 1 or 2 exercises would you recommend to focus on for general explosiveness and elasticity? I would say front squats are a great one, or back squats. Front squats or back squats. One of those two would be a great start for improving explosiveness if you're in a Globo gym. Okay, so you could do back squats with an auditory command, or unbroken back squats, or unbroken front squats, anything along those lines. I would say another one that you could do for explosiveness, can you do top-down deadlifts? Can you do high pulls? Can you clean it all? If there's no bumper plates, can you do high pulls with metal plates and just use straps, and you do like 5 sets of 5 clean high pulls? That's a good way to improve that explosiveness. Make sure you're making contact with the hips. Joe just said, I'm able to do 10 pull-ups now. Can you recommend some ways to improve my pull-ups? Honestly, I would say if you're doing like 5 sets of 7 or something, try to do like 6 sets of 8, 10 sets of 6. Increase your volume. That's the quickest way to improve that. The hip 90-90 for hip internal rotation, and try and push the inside, like your groin, down into the ground. I think that's another good way that you can improve hip internal rotation. I'm a head coach here in Brazil, and the biggest challenge here, this is from Coach Prance, is getting the athletes to train for football-specific skills tailored to their position. Most here train for aesthetics. I would say try to figure out how to convey the message. I'm trying to think through this. I would just try to convey that message of like, look, if you do this work, it's going to lead to better performance in the sport. Yeah, that was a bad answer, but I don't know the exact scenario there for Coach Prance. Football-specific skills. Can you have them lift like at the same time that they would be doing their skill work? Like that could be a good thing. Let's see here. Thanks for Dane. Also, how do you get rid of that skinny fat look? Skinny fat look. Get more reps. Focus on nutrition. Okay, so if you want to focus on your nutrition, dial in that high protein intake. Crush high protein. 4 days a week. Make sure you're lifting hour and 20 minutes, anything along those lines. That's going to help improve that overall skinny fat look. And more sprints. I think sprints always tighten everybody up. Until next time, guys. Peace.
So hamstrings, not only to make you faster, but keep away from injury. So you can be fast and jump 31 inches like you.
Correct.
Or be old and get hurt like me.
The stronger your semitendinosus is relative to your biceps femoris, the less likely you will be of injuring your biceps femoris.
We understand they're training for this sport. This is a tool to get them better in that.